There's a moment in One Piece that most people don't think twice about. A Marine is handed credit for saving an entire country. Promotion, recognition, respect, everything he's worked for, and refuses it. Not out of humility, out of anger. That Marine is Smoker, and that decision tells you everything about who he is and what he's starting to realize. When Smoker is first introduced in Loguetown, he seems straightforward. A Marine captain stationed at the place where Gol D. Roger was executed. A man who takes his job seriously. Someone who hunts pirates without hesitation. Not flashy, he's not overly emotional, he just does what he believes is right. But even in those early scenes, there's something different about him. Smoker isn't loud about his beliefs. He doesn't talk about protecting the world or upholding order, he just watches. When Luffy arrives in Loguetown, Smoker immediately recognizes him as a threat, not because of his bounty, but because of what he represents. Luffy isn't afraid. He walks through the same town where the Pirate King died with complete confidence. He smiles at the execution platform. He treats it like a starting line, not a warning. Smoker notices that, and it sticks with him. The moment that really matters happens at the execution platform. Luffy is captured, everything is under control, the Marines have done their job, and then in an instant, everything falls apart. Lightning strikes, Luffy survives, and the entire situation turns into chaos. Smoker doesn't panic, he doesn't lash out, he just stands there and processes what just happened. Because for the first time, something doesn't fit. A pirate who should have died didn't, and there's no clear explanation. That moment is small, but it's the beginning of something important. Smoker isn't the kind of person who ignores contradictions. If something doesn't make sense, he doesn't force it to. He keeps it in the back of his mind. After Loguetown, Smoker makes a decision that doesn't get enough attention. He chooses to follow Luffy into the Grand Line. On the surface, it looks like a standard pursuit, a Marine chasing a pirate, but it's not just that. Smoker wants to understand what he saw, because Luffy doesn't behave like the pirate Smoker is used to. He doesn't chase power for its own sake. He doesn't harm civilians. He doesn't manipulate or control. He just moves forward, helping people along the way. That doesn't match the version of pirates Smoker has built his career around. This tension really starts to take shape in Alabasta. Smoker is sent there to deal with Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords. Officially, Crocodile is on the world government's side. He's supposed to be maintaining order, but the reality is completely different. Crocodile is orchestrating a civil war. He's manipulating an entire country from the shadows, turning its people against each other while positioning himself as the solution. And the world government allows it. Smoker figures this out quickly. He sees the damage, he understands what's happening, and he realizes something that completely undermines his role as a Marine. The system he works for is protecting the problem. At that point, Smoker is stuck. He can't officially move against Crocodile because of his status as warlord. Acting without orders would mean going against the very organization he represents. Then Luffy gets involved. Luffy doesn't hesitate. He doesn't care about titles or permission. He sees someone causing harm and decides to stop him. And he does. Crocodile is defeated, the country is saved, the war ends, but the story doesn't get told that way. The world government steps in and rewrites it. They credit the Marine, they credit Smoker. From the outside, it looks like a success. A Marine captain takes down a dangerous pirate and protects a kingdom, but Smoker knows the truth. He didn't win that fight. He didn't save Alabasta. Luffy did. There's a scene where Smoker is informed about the official report. He's being praised, recognized, and instead of accepting it, he pushes back. He tells them they've got it wrong. This isn't about pride, it's about honesty. Smoker refuses to let a lie define his success. And more importantly, he refuses to pretend the system worked when it didn't. That moment changes how he sees everything. Before Alabasta, Smoker believed in justice as a structure. The Marines uphold order, pirates disrupt it. That's how the world works. After Alabasta, that structure doesn't hold up anymore. If the world government can protect someone like Crocodile, then justice isn't being applied evenly, it's being managed. Smoker doesn't leave the Marines after this. He doesn't turn against the system, but he stops trusting it completely. That shift is subtle, but it shows in how he operates going forward. By the time we reach Punk Hazard, Smoker is a vice admiral, stronger, more experienced, and far more aware of how the world actually functions. Punk Hazard puts him in a situation where his beliefs are tested again. The island is under the control of Caesar Clown, a scientist conducting dangerous experiments. It's another case of someone operating in a gray area, backed by powerful connections. To deal with it, Smoker ends up working alongside pirates, Luffy, Law, people he would have considered enemies earlier in the story. He doesn't like it, but he understands it's necessary. This is where Smoker's perspective becomes clear. He's no longer focused on labels, he's focused on outcomes. If stopping a threat requires cooperation, he'll do it. If the Marines aren't in a position to act effectively, he won't wait for permission. There's also the situation with Virgo. Virgo is a Marine, a high-ranking officer, someone who should represent the same ideals Smoker does, but he's secretly working for Doflamingo. This hits differently than Crocodile, because Virgo isn't an outsider exploiting the system, he's part of it. When Smoker confronts him, it's not just another fight, it's personal. Virgo represents everything Smoker is starting to distrust: corruption hidden behind authority, loyalty used as a shield. Smoker doesn't hesitate, he fights him directly, not because Virgo is technically an enemy, but because what he's doing is wrong. That's the distinction that defines Smoker at this stage of the story. He's not operating on orders alone, he's making his own judgment calls. His relationship with Luffy also evolves. Early on, Luffy is just a target, a pirate Smoker is determined to capture. Over time, that dynamic changes, not into friendship but into something more complicated. Smoker sees what Luffy does, he sees the people Luffy helps. He sees the impact Luffy has on places like Alabasta and Dressrosa. He can't ignore it, because it directly conflicts with the idea that pirates are inherently destructive. At the same time, Smoker doesn't abandon his role. He still believes that there needs to be order, but now he understands that the system enforcing that order isn't perfect. That puts him in a difficult position. He's part of an organization he doesn't fully trust. He's chasing people he doesn't fully see as enemies. He's trying to define justice in a world where it keeps shifting. Smoker isn't a revolutionary. He's not trying to tear the system down. He's something more grounded than that. He's someone who sees the flaws and chooses to keep going anyway. That's what makes him interesting. He doesn't get the clarity that characters like Luffy have. He doesn't get the certainty of someone like Akainu. He's dealing with doubt, and doubt is harder to write, but it's also more real. Smoker's story isn't about reaching a final answer, it's about what happens when the answer you started with stops making sense. At some point, he's going to have to make a decision. Stay with the Marines and try to do things his way, or step outside of it entirely. The story hasn't forced that choice yet, but everything about his character is building towards it, because you can't see as much as Smoker has seen and stay unchanged. If you enjoyed this video, you may enjoy this one down below.